I really love Easter, and I have a few pictures to show you this morning. Ken, I think there's 3. Do you see them up there? Yeah, maybe just show them. I thought I'd begin this way because Drew is our custodian. I get a kick out of Drew. He sent me this by email recently, right after the curtain came down, and this was in the evening. And the next picture, he wanted me to know that he's checking the church to make sure it's safe at night. And then we have our final picture. I think one more. There we go. We can have it right there. That cross, though, in the evening was quite a metaphor for me because it really reminds me that at Easter time, it arrived in the darkness. The women arrived, and seeing that cross in the dark reminded me, as one colleague said really wisely, sometimes, not always, but sometimes Easter can feel a little forced. In other words, after many, many years of reliving the Easter story, sometimes you have an Easter that life's just not going the way you want it to go. And what all of us need to remember today is that Easter begins in the darkness. There's no Easter without Good Friday or Saturday. Richard Rohr, the great spiritualist, Catholic priest, says it so wisely. Easter is our hurts become home of our greatest hopes. Think about that. Our hurts become home of our greatest hopes. A great colleague, friend of mine, said it really wisely too. Easter is the redemption of the innocents, redeemed by the cross. Not by more guns, not by some hero that's going to save the day by being extra strong and mighty, but the redemption comes through a loving God on a cross. So I thank Drew for sending me that picture. It's quite profound. You know, Easter for me, I have to say, part of my love for it isn't just the fact that I love chocolate. I also love breakfast. You know I'm a foodie already. I haven't even got into turkey this afternoon. But to be quite honestly, my mother, who I miss dearly, she loved Easter. She loved life. It doesn't surprise me that Jesus said, I've come so that you might have life and have it abundantly. And so some Easters are harder for me. I still remember the days when my mom would say to me around the Easter season, you know, her father had died on Good Friday, and he had been a long-time clerk of session, a long-time lover of the church and man of faith. And as sweet as Easter was for my own mother, who would be leading the choir, the junior choir, and playing the organ and all her wonderful music, there was also this air of sadness that her dad had died at Easter. So this morning I want to reflect on 3 things. The first, Easter and what God can do. The second thing I want to reflect on is, what's Easter mean for us today, and where do we go from here? So the first, Easter. I love a professor that has recently said, this story is extra credible because the Bible typically doesn't name women. Throughout the Bible, it's the women did this, the women did that. But in the Easter story, she says, Professor Zoda, she says, actually, Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Salome, Mary, the mother of James, they're all named. And she says, you know, after studying the Bible all these years, this has got more credibility. The men weren't putting this together. This really happened. The first ones to witness the resurrection were women. Isn't that say something too about the church at times, where we wrestle with women in roles of leadership in the church, yet the women were the first witnesses? In fact, not only were they first witnesses, in the Luke's gospel, it says when they went to tell the men said, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. Well, my friends, the first Easter is a mysterious, unbelievable moment. We have our doubting Thomas, of course. And the beautiful thing about doubting Thomas is that God embraces those who question and God embraces those who doubt. But what's really important for God to reveal is that, you know, it's really important that this resurrected Jesus has wounds. Thomas, reach into my wounds. This is not, some ghostly person. This is somebody who's really suffered. as we have suffered. So the first thing I want to say about the first Easter is it's always a surprise. Catches you off guard, comes up on you. Moving into what Easter means for me and you. A year ago, we were in London, England for Easter, my first time ever away from the church on sabbatical. And you're going to think, oh, Reverend John's going to tell you about the most amazing Easter service he ever went to. No, I'm not going to tell you about that. I can talk about Westminster Abbey and beautiful church, but here's the real moment of Easter for me. We were heading to an Airbnb to Harrow on the Hill in northern London. I had never traveled the tube before in London, busy city, never been to Harrow on the Hill. And I'm the fatherly figure trying to protect my family, and we get off the tube and it's pitch dark out. I don't know where we are. We have an address, and I say, I will buy a cab. I will get a cab. I don't want to walk. Oh no, my daughter who'd been in France with her little GPS, she's the adventure one. Dad, every journey is an adventure. Follow me. So we're dragging luggage around. I don't know where we are. Next thing you know, all I know is we are in a field. It's beautiful. Harrow on the Hill is beautiful. It's hilly, but we're somewhere between houses and flats, and I'm praying to God, I don't know where we're sleeping tonight. I really don't know where we're going. And she's following this little GPS thing, just following it faithfully. Sure enough, it's back alley stuff too, friends. This was dark. All of a sudden, the street, there's the right street, and we find the flat. Now, the two gals that were renting the flat, they had taken off to Scotland for the Easter season, so they were delightful. It was really warm and welcoming. They said, John, just look for the key underneath the flower pot, and we found it all nestled there. Opened up the box. I think there was a little code to get into it. That was a little tricky. My son solved that. We got the key. First time in England for me, folks. The key was like this friggin' big. And this is a flat. So we start working on the door. And I'm like I'm calling the Holiday Inn, whatever we got here in London, because we could not get that door open. And it must have been 15 minutes. We're all trying to get the door, and it's this 100-year-old door. And then the kindest Brit you could ever imagine, he's got a nice little cap on his head. He's wandering up, probably just coming up from the pub, for God's sakes, but he was as happy as all get out. And I think he knew our Canadian accents quickly. He took the key. He slipped it in with his eyes closed, I'm sure, and the door popped open. I went in that moment, it was Easter weekend, I said, hallelujah. This is the resurrection. I can sleep tonight. What does Easter mean for you? In our own crazy and silliness of life at times, Easter, in our moments of fear and dread and worry, Easter surprises us. It's a little bit of a paradox in some ways, too. Professor Laus David says, thinking about the kids here in the dirt, Jesus pushes us into the mysteries and the paradoxes of life and says, as hard as we think it is to let go and let God, and as much as we want to resist giving up and trusting, Easter calls us to give to God and see where these seeds will go. Let go of them, let them go into the ground. So what's Easter mean for you? I think it has something to do about letting go and trusting. Letting go and not controlling. Third and finally, where do we go from here? Well, I was very inspired this week to see that Malala, at age 14, who was shot by Taliban in 2012, thought to be left for dead, not only has survived that brain surgery, that shooting, but became the youngest girl to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Not only that, now at Oxford, living in the UK, this past week, on Thursday, she went back to Swat, her home community in Pakistan. As she went back to Pakistan, there were still religious, I would call zealots, who were declaring that she is no hero of theirs because she's anti-Muslim or anti-Pakistan or anti-something. There'll still be people here in the West that will say, she's not Christian or she's not this. But for me, she symbolizes a hero of hope who through the work of her and her father, is working diligently for the rights of children all across the world to receive education. She is a light in the darkness. And I believe that the Spirit of Christ's love can use someone like Malala to inspire us all. And she says, actually, in this work that she does to raise funds for education, she wants girls everywhere in the world to be learners and to lead. And she says this, without fear. If there's any symbol of hope today, she is a powerful one. I want you to think for your journey forward from here. There's an old saying that the stone's been rolled away. And one of my favorite philosophers, Rumi, who says in so many words, the stone's been moved away. Why don't you come out? So I want you to think about that. Why don't you come out of the tomb? So what's the stone keeping you back? Is it a stone that says, I'll never get through my grief or my depression? Is it a stone that says, I'll never overcome this stroke? Is it a stone that says the church can never be something different or new? Is it I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, worthy enough, I'm not talented enough? What is that stone that lays in front of you? I close with this. There was once a blind man Jesus knew, and he suddenly was given his sight. But you know what? Even when he was given his sight, he was dragged before authorities. And as he was dragged before the authorities, they said to him, "Who gave you this sight?" He made people angry. Jesus did. And the folks who were threatened by Jesus, they didn't like people that colored their eggs differently or planted their seeds in a unique way. So they circled their wagons and they tried to judge the man that had been blind that could now see and judge Jesus. But God didn't care. God just kept pouring out the grace to all. And so when the best explanation that the blind man could really give to these doubters and these religious leaders who really thought that he wasn't doing it the right way, the man simply said this, and I leave this with you for this Easter Sunday. I do not know. All I know is that once I was blind, but now I see. The stone's been rolled away, friends. Why would we ever stay inside? Let's get going together. Amen.